been knocking our heads against the wall for 5 years, doing some great work, sometimes having a lot of failed experiments but learning from them, to cite putting the first high-quality user-generated content on television, the first partner to work with Twitter to put tweets on television, the first crowdsourced hourly news pod on television. So just a long-winded way of saying we've been doing a lot of innovation and figuring out how to connect our audience of all ilk, whether they're bloggers or microbloggers or simply viewers or thoughtful citizens, with a medium that can share their voice and inform stories in a better way. But the ultimate form that takes is really hard to get right. So I think the experimentation is fabulous and the opportunity is tremendous. And the role of bloggers in particular can play in the story origination, the research, the fact-checking itself is huge, and we're only at the very beginning of a hopefully long, fruitful journey.
You know, that's very well said, and I don't disagree. I think, and Jay, I'm going to bring in this discussion here on one point in particular, because Don, I think what we did point out is that a gap or a chasm exists, right? As news is breaking, and then as news is being reported. Jay, I know you've talked a little bit about this, but in this chasm, there lies opportunity. And what does that opportunity look like?
Well, first of all, in reply to something Don said, the idea that nothing can get on the air on CNN until it's fact-checked is bizarre. I mean, that's certainly not true.
Wait, I did not say that. That's not what I said. That's not. I didn't say that nothing
before we
can
put
get on
the air, we fact-checked.
No, I said that there were people who were working to make sure that what you see is factual. I didn't say that everything that got on is fact-checked, and it should be.
Okay.
But sometimes things do get on that aren't necessarily fact-checked, but it happens. It doesn't just happen on CNN or on mainstream media. It happens everywhere. No organization is perfect.
This is where I was going. There's a gap because there always was a gap. People who knew that something happened knew it way before it was reported by the news media. People who were there when they read the account in the newspaper always said, hey, that's not totally what happened, or sometimes they would notice how wrong it was. There was always a gap between the participants in events and the news system fabricating, crafting accounts from those events. Now the difference is that the people who are participants, who are witnesses, who are there, who are part of the event, they are publishers themselves. They are news publishers themselves. And a news system has grown up that actually links those people to traditional news people. So when Ann Curry is on her Twitter feed, it's one news system connecting her to people who may be there or who may have seen something in an obscure corner of the world. So what I think we have to focus on is that the ethic of asking yourself before you distribute your report, is this true? Do I know it's true? Can I verify that it's true? That ethic simply has to spread to lots of people. Bloggers are quite capable of understanding that. People who happen to be accidental journalists because they're on the scene, they're capable of understanding that. It is the stock and trade of professional journalists, they have to understand it. But I don't think we should suggest that the people who care about verification are the people who work in professional newsrooms. I don't think that's true. I think everybody has to care about this.
Best correspondent at work today, John Burns, New York Times, now the London bureau chief, 2 Pulitzers, spent 5 years in Iraq, extraordinary reporter. Dexter Filkins, who works with him, very close behind him. But right after that comes Michael Yon and Michael Totten, 2 individuals who are not affiliated with any particular organization, and who do amazing work because they have the same love of the story and attention to detail as do Burns and Filkins. Yon and Totten I would put up against anybody. They also provide a model, I think, for anyone who aspires to be a journalist and to be a major journalist, which is to be exceedingly good at the craft you pursue and diligence in finding great stories. And that's the gap I think you're talking about, is that new journalists are showing up. They don't have to be affiliated with anyone. It's very lean and mean for a few years. But if they're interesting and their craft is good and they can write, the thing we haven't talked about, the limit of Twitter, 140 characters, not very hard. No one's ever going to make a living interesting writing that can be translated into broadcast.
You're in the way.
All right, so I'm going to ask this question. It's going to take a minute, but it's going to come to you. Is that I think what we're learning here, and basically what we said here is, what we're learning with new media, and social media in general, is that the personality, the human aspect, the human angle of the story becomes very important, right? David Weiner had said in his essay, The Reboot of Journalism, that as part of the news business, sources were very much a part of the process of storytelling. But now these sources have access to the same publishing tools that everybody else has. And they are publishing directly, right? And they're bypassing the traditional intermediaries. But what we're learning from that process is that people are making connections to other people at a very human level. And I think that that is probably part of the essence that's going to fuel the evolution of new media. And so case in point, Joanna, you had 2 reporters that were in North Korea who were arrested and detained while they were investigating a story for Current. Of course, we all took to Twitter, we all took to new media, we all shared our thoughts, we shared our relief when they were released. But how does that sort of human story, they became personalities in that process, how does that change sort of what Current and how Current is looking at the future of journalism?
Hard not to get emotional. Every time the subject comes up, it's been a very emotional year for us. And we're just so glad that it's amazing within our home. Emotional partly on the subject of the role the media plays in our being a media entity and our policy on not speaking to the incident that was underway while they were in captivity. It was very hard thing for media organizations to do, particularly one that's filled of 20 to 30-something-year-olds who are tweeting and social media all day long. We did that because we wanted to keep them safely, and that was the best policy to get them home. Now that they are home, more than anything, we have always been focused on redefining what journalism can be for a younger audience, for an audience that's engaged in social media, that wants to have a hand in participating or sharing stories that are important to them, and redefining what is news and of import. And so, as we look to Laura Lake and her team and the amazing work that this scrappy five-person backpack journalists are doing around the world, the stories that they're telling around, waterboarding. The Oxycontin Express was a story we told on Wednesday night, which if you haven't seen it, go to current.com and check it out. There's
To CNN on Sunday night, I'll be doing it. I'll have the Current journalist on, and
the CNN guys are watching carefully what we're doing. This team, Don was promoting the fact that we only have 8 people working on some of the stories, and these guys are going out 2-people teams and telling these incredible, riveting stories that are really important in the world. We don't want to be talking about Blue Boy. We want to be talking about as I mentioned, the Oxycontin is an epidemic of drug addiction going on in Florida right now because there's insufficient regulation anyway. I'm not going to give the story away, but please go watch it. It's incredible. But the kind of work they're doing, we're so proud of it. We think it's really important in the world at a time when people are investing less and less in journalism. But to your larger question, there's a huge role for us to connect with contributors all over the world as we tell those stories. And we don't have the resources to send people everywhere something important happens, and we don't have a ton of resources to send mass teams of people to produce these videos. So by nature, we want to rely on our community and our audience, and that to me is the big opportunity.